What is up, everybody? Welcome. Checking my lighting here, making sure it's all good. All right, we are live. We are live. All right, I want to talk through the ballot propositions today. So I'm going to wait a few seconds for people to jump on, and then we will. What is up? Oh, yeah. There goes my phone. All right. Have the phone on silent. So let's wait a few seconds while we get this thing going. Welcome. All right, we have a lot coming up in the elections right now. I don't like to get much into the political and the election stuff, but what I wanted to do today is to talk about the propositions. I actually think that the local propositions, especially state level and also county, have a lot more impact on our day to day lives and the things that we do wherever we live. So if you are in California, I wanted to take some time and talk about the different propositions that we have on the ballot. And considering the fact that a lot of people are getting ready to do mail in voting and whatnot, I thought this might be helpful to some people to just give you some insight into all of them and my thoughts about them. So, if you can, share, let other people know about this and bring some more people on. I approach the ballot propositions not so much just from a political perspective, and there is some influence on that, but more from a values perspective. And so I really carry certain values that are important to me, and I attempt to, as much as I can, line things up with biblical values. There are always some propositions that are kind of, and you'll see some of those tonight as I go through them, that are kind of like a 50-50 type of thing. And you could almost go either way on them. And so some are extremely clear, and I have no doubts about biblically. Other ones are pretty clear politically, I guess you could say, or just in the way that I think things should be managed in a state. And then there's some others that are kind of like 50-50, and you could kind of go both ways on. So, I'm going to jump into this right now because my time tonight is a little bit limited and there's a whole lot of propositions. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for being with me tonight. And if you have any questions about any of them, you can let me know. These are propositions going from number 14 to 25 that we are voting on this season. And some people, and I wanted to get this out here now because I know some people are right now receiving ballots and getting ready to send in mail-in ballots. Obviously, some will vote in person, which is amazing as well. But I wanted to put this out there right now just so that way you have the information. Now, let me be clear before I get into this. I am okay with disagreement. I don't believe that my opinions on ballot propositions are like always 100% like God's opinions. A lot of things that we try to focus on and do right are kind of change from year to year, and so we do our best. So let me jump right into this right now. Okay. Proposition number 14 is focused on stem cell research. This one, from a biblical perspective, is an easy one to answer. It issues $5.5 billion in bonds for stem cell research. And for me, this is an absolute easy no. We do not believe in using the stem cells primarily of aborted fetuses, aborted babies, in order to do research to help potential, diseases, to be able to come up with solutions for those types of things. In fact, it's already being proven right now that actually certain adult types of cells have the same effect and same impact and can be used for study. And there's been some great successes there already. And so I do not believe we need to be testing the stem cells of aborted babies in order to come up with solutions for those that are living. We value the lives of babies. That is an easy one for me. vote no on 14. Number 15 has to do with creating a tax, an extra tax on commercial and industrial properties. Now, what this is basically commercial and industrial properties for the most part, and I'm giving the general overview of these. Um, when a person buys that property, similar to buying or purchasing a home that you live in, when you buy the property, you have the tax according to the value of when you purchased the property. And then the property tax on that increases every year, but based off of a certain percentage. I believe it's like 2% or something like that. So, well, what they're suggesting to do in Prop 15 is that the taxes would be based off of the current property value in that moment. And so what that's going to naturally lead to is much higher property taxes on buildings, industrial and commercial buildings. And some people will say, hey, you know what? It's business people that have a whole lot of money, so, why not milk them? Well, two issues that I have with that. Number one, we always have to look at the consequences of any action. So, when you increase the taxes, the property taxes on the buildings of the owners of these properties, naturally what's going to happen is that the owners of these buildings are going to pass those taxes along to the people that are renting the buildings. So in many cases, actually, especially in places where there are what's called triple net leases, triple N, and other places, the people that actually rent or lease the property are the ones that are paying the property taxes. It's not always the owner that covers it. And so there's a lot of details in that, but the point is it will make it more expensive, not just for the owner of the property, it will make it more expensive for all the small businesses that are doing business in those properties. Those taxes will be passed on to them. And I know, because we're a church that leases a facility, and those can easily be passed on to us as a church, but to any business whatsoever, which then means that the businesses in turn will increase the costs of whatever it is that they are doing. And so you and I as consumers will end up paying more money for whatever it is that we are buying. So that is important to understand. And then you ask the second question, where are these taxes going to? Well, these taxes are going to two places. Number one, because of what will potentially happen, it literally says this in the law, because of what will happen in terms of revenue, tax revenue to the government that will decrease. Yes, you heard me right. Other tax revenues will decrease because they're increasing these taxes. And so they will use these taxes to cover the shortfall that this creates to other tax revenue. So this is pointless. We're increasing one area, which will cause decrease in tax revenue in other areas, and we'll just take the money from this area to apply to the decrease in that area, meaning we're not accomplishing much of anything with this. Secondly, a portion of it will be sent to schools. Now let me be clear. I support schools. I really do. But what I support most of all are the students and obviously the teachers that are teaching. My issue with sending more money to the schools is, as of right now, LAUSD is spending almost $19,000 per student per year. And that doesn't even count construction costs and things they're doing with facilities and buildings. So the reality is they're spending a super large amount of money, and the reality is not producing an amazing product or an amazing education. And I'm not speaking against the teachers here. The issue is that what ends up happening is most of this money goes more towards administration than it goes towards helping the students and the teachers. And that is a massive issue that I have. This is why private schools end up doing a lot better, because they invest a lot more money where it actually needs to go. And so I'm a no on Proposition 15. Prop 16 would actually, it's about removing, it repeals Proposition 209, which was passed in 1996, which removed discrimination in our state based off of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in public employment, education, or contracting. So this Prop 16 wants to remove that, which will then allow for more discrimination. And we don't want more discrimination. It's as simple as that. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, it's complicated because we have people with different ethnicities with different outcomes, and so we need to invest resources in different ways and all of that. But here's the reality. We want a society that treats everybody equally under the law. This is important. And because of that, I am a no on Prop 16. Let's keep our law as it states that we will not discriminate against anyone based off of race, gender, or race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Prop number 17. In the state of California, and this is what this is about, it would give felons, those who have committed felonies, the right to vote after being released from prison. Let me give you a perspective on this. There are two extremes. On one extreme, there are some states that do not allow felons to ever vote again. That's one extreme. On the other far extreme, there are states that allow felons to continue voting even while they are in prison. And so we have these two extremes. Where does California find itself? Essentially in the middle. Whereas what our current law states is a felon while they are in jail, and then afterwards when they are paroled, they are not allowed to vote. But after they finish parole, they are then allowed to vote. What this prop seeks to do is to remove the parole portion, or in other words, to allow felons to vote once they are released from jail. Let me be honest. I am 50-50 on this one. There's a lot of arguments on both sides, and the truth is, if it was allowing them to vote while in jail, I would be a definite no on that one. But as far as removing it on parole, the reason why I'm 50-50 is that there are so many different layers and levels of how parole happens and what it means for different people that it's just hard to make an either or decision on this one. So I'm going to be honest with you, Prop 17, my opinion is go either way, whatever you really feel on that one. I am leaning towards no on it, but I'm really close to 50-50 on that one. So, yeah, there you go. Sorry I can't be more helpful on number 17. Number 18, Prop 18. This will allow 17-year-olds to vote in primary elections if they will turn 18 before a general election. So, for example, if a person turned 18 today, October 5th, they're allowed to vote in the general election, right now for president. But because they turned 18 today, they were not allowed to vote in the primary, the Democratic primary, the Republican primary, or whichever primary. And so this Proposition 18, would be about allowing those people that turn 18 before a general election, but turn 18 after the primary. It would allow them to vote at 17 years old in the primary. There's a few states, I believe it's somewhere between 10 to 20 states, that already have a law similar to this. And again, like 17, this is my other one where I'm kind of 50-50 on. Some people would say, well, because they're still minors, they shouldn't vote in the primaries. And, there's propositions in primaries, a whole lot less in primaries than in the general election. We only had one prop vote in the primary this year, from what I remember, whereas we have like 12 right now in the general election. But the other side would say that by allowing them to vote at 17 in the primary, you're engaging them earlier in the political process, which helps them be more informed when they get to the general election at 18 years old. I see validity on both sides. So my answer to 18 is the same as 17. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I'm not sure which way I'm going to fall yet on that one, but that's where I am. So 17 and 18 are my only 50-50 ones. From here on out, I have very clear answers about where I'm going. If you're just joining me, I'm going through all the California ballot propositions. If you're getting ready to vote by mail, or if you just want to be ahead of the ball game, ready to vote in person, great. Just wanted to go through them and give some perspectives on them. So number 19, Prop 19. Prop 19 is a proposition about taxes, which would essentially change the tax assessments on transfers and inheritance regarding property. So let me explain this one to you. Transfers have to do with, for example, if a person sells a property and they are over 55 years old, they can, in some counties, not all the counties in California, but in some counties, they're able to go to the new county, if they moved, and to purchase a property at the same or lesser value, and they would be able to keep the same property tax bill of what they had before, instead of being charged based off of the current value of that new home that they are purchasing. It's a good way of making sure that people that are, getting more in the senior range of age are not stuck with high tax bills when they're moving into a stage of life that has less income. That exists already. And then inheritance rules have to do with when the property is given to a son from the parents, or a daughter, right? Or from the grandparents to the grandkids, let's say parents died or something like that, then they would also pay taxes based off of the previous value, not off of the new value of the home. There's some things to like about Prop 19. It gives people that are 55 years and older some more flexibility, which I like. The inheritance issue, it essentially shuts that one down. And because of that, this law does some good, does some bad, but the good is not worth it to me for the bad that it does. And so for that reason, I am a no on Prop 19. Okay? Prop number 20. Prop 20 is a law enforcement proposition, and it has a lot to do with criminal sentencing charges, prison release, and DNA collection. Let me basically clarify something. This law was created as a response to 47 and 57, and what was Props 47, 57, and AB 109, which was passed in the California legislature. And basically what's going on is they are attempting to, and let me pull up my notes to get it exactly right and tell you, a no vote on this would, let me start with the yes vote on this, forgive me. A yes vote would add crimes to the list of violent felonies for which early parole is restricted. I'll explain this. Recategorize certain types of theft and fraud crimes as what are called wobblers, and require DNA collection for certain misdemeanors. So basically, here's what we have. We have certain laws that are felonies, certain crimes that are felonies. We have certain crimes that are misdemeanors, and we have what are called wobblers, and those are opportunities for a judge to be able to determine case by case whether they will charge that person as a misdemeanor or as a felony. And then in these categories, there is early release parole. And so basically what happened was there was a Supreme Court case that had to do with California, and we had too many people in prison. And so our prisons were overcrowded, and we were required to figure out a solution to get people out of the prisons. Noble thing to do. I don't have an issue with that. And so that was the original propositions, right, of 47 and 57 and AB 109. But what's going on here is that the non-violent felonies, basically people were released early, right, early parole, but the non-violent felonies was not descriptive enough. So there were a lot of people that were being released that had actually committed violent crimes, and they were being released early. So what Proposition 20 seeks to do primarily is to add specific violent crimes, and there's a list of them, like 51, I think, to the law, so that way actual violent criminals would not be released early. For this reason, I say yes to Prop 20. I say yes to Prop 20. Prop 21. Prop 21 has to do with rent control, essentially. And it expands a local government's power with regards to rent control. There was an act called the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act that was enacted a while ago. I believe it was 1995. And basically it stated that properties that were built and constructed after 1995 were not subject to the same laws of rent control. And this new one basically says any property built in the last 15 years is not subject to it, but anything before that is. And I'm giving the general overview of these, as I said before. Well, mainly, the big issue here is that this will actually decrease, you heard me right, it will decrease affordable housing. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're going to say, well, rent control keeps landlords from increasing the rent too much. I understand that. But it's counterintuitive because what really will happen is when landlords are not able to charge an effective market rate for their rent, they are more likely to just end up selling their property to make money off of it to somebody that will buy it and live in it. And what ends up happening as a consequence of that is there are less properties available for rent. And because there are less properties available for rent, supply and demand, it works, it happens, the cost of rent increases exponentially. Because even where there's rent control, when somebody moves out and a new person comes in, they can then bump it up to the market rent at that point. And so the more properties that get sold for people to live in, and I'm not against that because I've owned houses before, but the more properties that get sold means less rental properties, and the less rental properties means higher rent. And so for this reason, I am actually a no on Prop 21. All right, Proposition 22 is a proposition about business things. And this one, let me be very clear from the get-go. I am a massive, big yes on this. It's a response to AB 5, which was passed in the California legislature, that dealt with Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and a lot of other things, where people were independent contractors. And the idea was, well, we're going to make them all employees so they get all the benefits, minimum wage and healthcare, this, that, or the other, that employees get. But the problem with that is that actually a lot of the independent contractors enjoyed the fact that they could have their own life, kind of be their own boss and do it as like a side hustle and things like that. So what happened is Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, but not only there, writers, people that write for a living, they literally have a limit of the amount they're allowed to write before newspaper has to hire them. And so what ends up happening is where they would be paid per article, and they would make their money but still have their freedom to work and accept the projects they wanted. The newspaper, not having the money to hire them, only has a limit according to the law of how many articles that person can write. And so what ended up happening is people that were freelancers that enjoyed being freelancers were now limited on the amount of jobs they could get. And so AB 5 has caused massive damage to the state of California. And Prop 22 is mainly supported by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, I think Postmates, and it's mainly focused on drivers, okay? It doesn't resolve all the issues. So my only issue with Prop 22 is it doesn't go far enough. There's a lot of other industries that need to be protected as well. But for what it's about and for what it does, I am fully in favor of Prop 22, which would exempt the drivers from AB 5 and allow them to continue as independent contractors. I think that's a good thing because the people that are working in those areas and in those fields primarily want to be independent contractors. So I say let them, and then let's continue to work in the future to help everybody else that's been affected negatively by AB5. And let me be clear, AB5 has been a disaster for our state, and Prop 22 doesn't resolve all of it, but it resolves a chunk of it, and I think that is good. All right, Prop 23 is related to healthcare. Basically, it would require kidney dialysis centers to have a physician at all times on site, another physician that would make sure that things are going okay. The issue at this point is that if they have to submit to these requirements, not only that, but before they can close a center, they would have to get permission from the government. Imagine this. Imagine if you have a center that is not functioning, not working, losing tons of money, and you would have to get permission from the government to close it. Why? Well, because obviously they're providing a service to people. But the end result of this law is it will most likely cause for there to be less places that provide dialysis rather than more places. They're putting so many restrictions and requirements on them that it's going to make it very hard for the dialysis centers to survive. And so for this reason, I am a no on Prop 23. Prop 24 is regarding business. It expands the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, which was a law enacted in 2018. And that law sought to help us here in California to have a little bit more control over our privacy, especially with apps and social media and all that type of stuff. I love that. That is great. This law seeks to help us even more, but this law is extremely confusing, has a lot of kind of carve-outs for businesses. So what it seems to be the case that'll be helpful, behind the scenes it seems like it's doing the opposite of that. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like this law will create the benefits we want, or it's so confusing that we're not sure what's going to happen. But the law that was enacted in 2018, the CCPA, is very clear. And so at this point, my opinion is no on 24 because the 2018 law is solid. And if we want to improve that, I say we can do another proposition in the future, but one that is a lot more clear and makes sense than this one. And so this one's kind of like it's got a lot of the fine print that's just a mess all over the place. So for that reason, I'm a no on this one, but I would favor more privacy if there was a new proposition placed on the ballot in the future that it was a lot more clear than what this one is. All right, Prop 25 is a proposition about bail. And basically, we have a system that has existed, forever. Not forever, but for a long time, where bail exists. A lot of people have issues with the bail system because they believe that bail bond companies take advantage of people. And we can have an argument about that anytime. Not that I would have an argument. I'm just saying people can argue about that anytime. But really, there is an issue with Prop 25. And I'm a no on this. So let me explain it. What's going on with Prop 25 is they want to completely get rid of the bail system and to go to what they're calling a risk assessment system. And so they assess the risk of a person, whether they will, skip out on a court case on a low, medium, and high level risk. And so if they assess them at a high level risk, they stay in jail automatically. No bail, no chance to get out. And then medium, I think, low, I think is you go free, and the medium is kind of debatable. But here's where the big issue is. They're mainly using computer algorithms to do the risk assessment for people. And think about your car insurance. This is a good example to use. It's not perfect, but it's similar, right? In car insurance, they use risk assessment algorithms. Well, it's based off of where you live and how many cars were stolen, or how many accidents happened in that area, and all that type of stuff. And there's computer algorithms, and then it spits out, an amount that you're going to need to pay. And so you may be a great driver, but these computer algorithms end up charging you a lot more based off of where you live and what type of car you have and what their assumptions are based off of those things. So imagine a risk assessment tool to determine whether a person stays in jail or doesn't stay in jail based off of algorithms that says, well, they're from this area geographically, there's more crime or there's less crime or this or that. It could end up having a major disparate impact upon a lot of racial minority groups and other people, people that are poor and whatnot. And so overall, what they're proposing to do to replace the bail system is going to, in my mind, and the minds of many people, create many more problems and end up hurting people more than it actually helps people. And for that reason, I am a no. All right, those are the California propositions number 14 to 25. LA County has two measures. One regards, or LA City has one for LAUSD. It's measure RR, and it's about bonds and extending bonds to be able to do more construction for schools. Let me tell you this right now. I am heavily against more money to LAUSD that massively mismanages their money. If they were doing it good, and if their education was improving, and if they were doing well by both the teachers and the police and the students, I would be more inclined to say yes to more money for them. But they have been mismanaging money all over the place, and most of the money that they get ends up going to corporate or to administration, as I said before at the beginning of this video. So I am a no on Measure RR. And on Measure J for LA County, what that would do is it would create cemented into the LA County budget 10% of the budget having to go at all times basically to social programs. So basically, in light of the issues that have been going on with police, and I'm not getting into that topic today, I'm just saying in light of all of that that's been going on, what people are wanting to do is to transfer money in budgets to social programs to be able to help people. Now, I am in favor of helping people. Let me be clear about that. But I am not in favor of requiring a cemented amount of the LA County budget to go to a certain thing at all times, and it can never be changed. That is my issue with that. And so for that reason, I am a no on Measure J. That doesn't mean that LA County always manages their money right. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is, if there's a big downturn economically and they're forced to continue to fund at a 10% rate something when they need money for something else, it really creates a difficult situation. So I don't think we should put those types of requirements in the LA County budget. And so those are my thoughts on all the props and the measures in LA. I hope this has been helpful to you. I'm ending it right now, but I encourage you right now or once I'm done, share it with some people. And I hope this has been helpful to you. And if you have any questions about anything I said, feel free to shoot me a message and or a comment on this video, and I'm more than willing to help you out. All right, God bless you. Have a great day.